Navigating the choppy waters of divorce can be costly and cost a lot emotionally as well. Nearly 40% of married couples in Canada do divorce, and some of those cases end up in bitter and very costly court battles. Mediation is one way to avoid all that. Saskatchewan has started a pilot project called Mandatory Early Dispute Resolution. That's happening in Prince Albert, and the program is moving to Regina. John Hewson is a Regina-based family mediator and head of TCM Mediation Studio. Hi, John.
Hi, Costa. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. It's good to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
I want to ask you about this program. Can you give us the Coles Notes on how it works?
Well, just to be clear, I'm representing TCM Mediation Studio, not what the ministry is doing, but as you indicated in your introduction, in Prince Albert, there's a pilot project that's now encouraging folks, requiring them to take some form of dispute resolution process before going through the legal process and ultimately trying to get to court. It's trying to get folks to make sure they've exhausted some sources that may help them get through the process more effectively, more efficiently, and with less conflict.
Well, I thought mediation was sort of a part of the whole thing of splitting up. So what's different about this?
Well, it is, but as I come across clients, we see things on TV, we read things in books that if we're looking at wanting separation or divorce, is that especially in TV, we'll call up a lawyer, and before you know it, we're in court and working towards getting a divorce. But it's not that efficient. There's other resources that they can try first. This is not to not include the legal process. That's certainly part of it, to make sure people are the analogy I use is good fences make good neighbors. But before you can get to that end agreement of separation, there's conflict there. We're talking about a history of conflict that maybe is leading folks to recognize that this isn't the relationship they want to be in. However, they do have a family and the responsibility of children, so there's other ways to navigate the legal system in a way that's going to give them a bigger or greater voice in what the outcome is going to be. And that's what I think is not only happening in Saskatchewan, but across Canada. Is we're trying to give people a bigger voice as to what is going to be best for their particular family. And if it's good for their family, it's going to be good for their children. That's what we're really shooting for.
So with, let's say, a couple that's decided to go its separate ways with a couple of children, young children, they have some outstanding issues and they come to you. So what do you do for them that can help to some kind of an amicable split up?
It's when they come and see us, what they're bringing with them usually is a duffel bag full of history. And there's an emphasis on the past, and there's communication shortfalls. So what we're going to do, and what we have done, is there's teaching part of the mediation process to understand more effective ways of communicating, understand how they're coming across, understanding that the past conflicts aren't necessarily going to help them move forward. So the legal process has a lot to do with evidence and affidavits and what went on in the past. And mediation is a current and forward-thinking process. So it helps folks recognize what's going to drive this process forward, rather than pointing fingers and holding them in the past. We need to look at the present and move forward.
Under this mandatory early dispute resolution plan, though, what if one of the two couples just decides this mediation isn't working and steps away? What happens to the process then?
Yeah, and that's inevitable because some conflicts are such that mediation isn't going to be appropriate. So if one or both of the couple determine that it's not going to work for them, at least they've tried to have that conversation. And hopefully they've picked up maybe a few tools in that initial contact with a mediator. But it's not for everybody. And if both parties aren't involved in the process after they've spent 2 or 3 hours in mediation, and they can see that it's not going to work for them, then they go to the next step. So often what we like to see is folks sitting down over the kitchen table, if you will, trying to figure out how they want to separate. The next step would be mediation. And if that doesn't work, then we look at collaborative law. There's collaborative lawyers who are trained with mediation and can represent their clients still collectively. And if that doesn't work, then you carry on through lawyers negotiating on your behalf. But as you move forward, your voice sometimes becomes less of an impact, and law is kicking in, and ultimately someone else is going to be making decisions for you and your family.
Well, how is that? How does that? Well, we'll leave that aside. But there are lawyers that advertise that this is their specialty, is divorce. And I assume that most lawyers do try to find some mediation or some middle ground so they can avoid the court, avoid, the judges.
Absolutely.
And that. So what's the difference between that and what's happening here?
Well, there's a cost. Lawyers have spent years in preparation for their training, and when you're looking at hiring lawyers who are going to be running in legal fees per hour of $300 to maybe $650, $700 per hour, and that's representing both parties. An hour can get very expensive, where the cost of hiring me or one of there's scores of family mediators throughout the province. You're looking at maybe $150 to $300 an hour, but that's just for the mediator to help the couple. So the cost is time. So it's trying to slow the process down and allow them to maybe iron out some of their issues with respect to maybe child support or spousal support, property division, and the all-important parenting arrangement if there's kids involved in the situation. So there's a time and cost benefit there, so that when you do go see your lawyer, you're using the right tool for the right job there. So that's why I say it's not mediation or the legal process. It's bringing it all together and using a variety of tools that are going to help this family, who are going to continue as a family, even though they're working towards separation, but they're transitioning in a more healthy way.
And that's a good thing. You're transitioning in a healthy way, given when there are kids involved. Let me ask you about the cost here. You mentioned that certainly lawyers' fees can be pretty high. What's with this dispute resolution pilot project in Prince Albert coming to Regina? What does this cost couples if they're thinking of having to go this route, for example?
As it rolls out in Regina and also as it is in PA right now, there's different costs for the parties, which will be specific to them. But it's far less expensive than going straight to hiring your lawyers.
Well, that's good to know. It's a good starting point, I guess, on a situation.
It's a starting point, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for telling us about this, John. We really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Costa. Take care.
Bye-bye.